Welcome, podcast audience. We're glad you joined in with us today. How's everybody doing?
Hey, everybody. We're glad you're here.
Yes, sir. Well, we have got a short list, but I bet you we will fill all the time.
I'm sure.
Today.
I'm
I
sure.
have a short list of things. So
Hey, you know what we didn't mention last week that we
Yeah.
need to keep mentioning is subscribe.
Yes.
we do. We do. We're getting real close.
We are, but it's inching. We were going in
Yeah.
a little
And
bit
then
of
it
leap.
slowed down.
It's slowed down,
So-
but we're so close. I just wanted to finish out.
For those of you who are new to this conversation, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers because YouTube is promising big things for us.
Yes.
We don't even know if they're worth it.
We don't know that, but we're excited. So if
It's
you
sort of
haven't,
like when I was a kid, and was Mattel still making things? Or does Mattel still make toys?
Yeah.
Okay, Mattel used
How
to be
old are
like
you?
they were the ultimate promiser of things that you would get them in to go, huh.
yeah, it didn't
That was
work so well.
That's
So
Not so good.
1,000 podcast subscribers may be like
Maybe,
the
yeah,
new Mattel
So
to me.
if you're
But
on,
I want it. I
If
really.
you're on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, we're asking you, please go ahead and
Yes.
subscribe.
We don't know
And,
if it's worth it or not.
hit that
We'll let you
button.
know.
We will.
We hope it's a benefit
Oh, you
to
know
you.
we'll let them know. We've been talking about this
Yeah.
for weeks. So go ahead and do that. And if you have a question you want us to address, we often get into questions around here. I want to remind everybody there's a link in the description on YouTube and on the podcast app that you're listening to this on.
Click it.
Just click that link and send us a question. You can send it anonymously through that link. Or if you're real brave and you want us to know who you are, you can just go to the comments and
There you go.
You
put one on
can.
the comments and just, be who you are. And we'll
Be
answer
you.
that too.
You be you.
You be you.
Then we'll address you by name. Maybe. If we
Or
have
by
some-
your YouTube handles, like Soggy Nachos. Or
There you
I
go.
wonder if Soggy Nachos is listening. That's someone who shows up in our service every week.
There
Soggy
you go.
Nachos.
All right. Let's start with this. It's a real pertinent topic. We are getting lots of questions, and people want to know. It's like the number one thing people want to talk to me about these days is like, when we coming back to in-person services? Now that the restrictions are things are starting to open up, with the virus, and we're trying new things. How about church? When's church going to open up? So I thought it'd be good for us to sort of update people where we are on that, what the future looks like, as far as we know. So let's talk about where we are and what that looks like coming up for the
We're
church.
going to wait on Major League Baseball. No.
Oh, boy.
Great.
once we have a Major League Baseball game, I'm going to feel okay, which may
Yeah.
mean no.
I
It's
don't
not
know.
coming back then.
All right, we're going to float out a lot of possibilities, and
Yeah.
like we're going to hold services in Arizona, all in Arizona.
Yeah. Y'all come on. Go with us.
No, we are getting closer and closer with all seriousness.
Yes.
Sometime early in June, we will have services. And as some of you know, we know who you are and we have a way to contact you. You've been getting email and text from us to, hey, go in and let us test out this ticketing thing that we've been doing. You guys know the ticketing?
Yeah.
Yeah, my family actually got our tickets last time.
There we go. Our fake tickets.
Fake tickets.
I think Nathan did it one time, and then he's like, "Yeah,
Not doing that again. I'm not planning on being there.
Which is a problem, Nathan.
It
That's
is a problem. That is a problem.
You are a problem.
I'm a problem.
I brought that up so that we could publicly do something that I don't think is valuable. Shame Nathan.
That's shame
Just shame me. Just shame me for not doing it. I didn't do it.
He did
I
it
didn't help.
once and thought that was good enough, but the deal with the ticketing is like going to a Major League Baseball game.
Yes.
You have to have a ticket to every game.
Every time.
You have to have a ticket
Every
every
time.
time. And I know that's different than when we used to just say, hey, 9, 10:30, noon. We had 5 services at 2 different campuses. You're going to have to let us know when you're coming because the social distancing stuff, and it's going to have to happen every week. And I know that's a little bit of a pain, but the benefit is we're going to get to be back together.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that we can uphold the things that we think are important that the government has asked us to do. And
Yep.
we really want to do that, not because, I know some of us have all kinds of political kind of thoughts and on everything that's going on, but there's nothing that the government's asking us to do that is violating anything that God asked us to do.
right.
So as a part of followers of Christ, we have a responsibility when those two match up that we do what we're asked to do and we serve our community as well as we can. So we're going to try to do that. So
We were just talking about things are going to be different. I mean, don't
Yeah.
come expecting it to just be just like it was before. It's going to be different.
Yeah.
all of us miss it. And Nathan used a phrase in our staff meeting. We were talking about this the other day. We've been saying new normal, but more of this I know everybody wants to come back for normalcy, but this is a different kind of normalcy.
Yeah. I think there's a feeling, and I felt it a lot in conversations with people. I think when this all started, everyone was kind of willing to embrace a lot of the newness of this. And I think the longer it's gone on, I hear lots of people talking about how they want to get back to normal. And what they mean by normal was February of this year.
Yeah.
What happened, what it was before any of this happened.
I don't want to get back to normal before the internet.
Right, no, not like the historic normal.
I want to roll that up a little bit.
That's right.
1988.
That's right. Just going back a little bit. I don't know. Some people would like it to be 1988 again. So
I don't.
But, there you go. No. But yeah, I think we are going to. I think maybe a better way to say it is that we're going to try and get some routine back to our lives. Of there's the routine that most of us had. We come to church on Sundays and we worship together. But it won't be what it was in February, and it may never necessarily ever be what we had in February. But the good thing about that is we believe God always does new things, and God is, the God who says over and over again, look, I'm doing a new thing, right? I'm bringing new things into this, and God can work in all circumstances. And so there will be a new normal to all of this, but I think the more that we can get in our heads, it's not going to be, like you said, the exact normal we have in our head. But there's nothing to say that what happened in February of this year was the best normal possible. And I don't think any of us would say my life in February was the best it could ever be.
Yeah.
I know some people that were complaining in February.
Yeah, exactly.
I can show you emails I got about services we did in February.
Yeah, sure.
Had complaints involved in them. Yes. So I know they weren't totally satisfied.
So a lot of the things we're gonna be doing, like you said, kind of in accordance with what the government's asking us to do and that kind of stuff. It won't. You may show up and you go, well, this isn't exactly what I thought it'd be, and you would be right. It's not going to be exactly what you thought. I can guarantee you, whatever you think it's going to be, it's not going to be exactly what you think it's going to be.
And let's be clear, it's not everything. We missed the way it was.
That's right.
We had a part in creating what had been. We liked most of what used to be. And in some ways, we were really comfortable with it, and we miss it too. But, hey, we're embracing that God is at work and doing new things, and that, as you taught just a few weeks ago in this series, God's at work even in bad things or things that we feel that are bad to bring about good in us, the good that is in us. And this can be another part of that too.
And we're going to have to embrace some things that honestly are just uncomfortable, that I don't necessarily want to do. I'm doing that in my personal life. I was just telling you guys the other day, I don't like wearing a mask, and it bothers me. But you know what? I got to a place where I said, for the sake of people who are at risk, and for the sake of some people who are fearful, I'll do that. And we talked about this the other day, and we just recently talked about this. That has some biblical precedent to it.
Yeah.
This is taught in Scripture. There's a portion of the book of 1 Corinthians where Paul, he's speaking about a different issue, of course, but it's an issue where there's some folks who they have a problem with their conscience about eating certain things, and they think it's wrong to eat certain things. And Paul says, I know that it's not wrong, and I don't have a problem with my conscience, but if I'm entering the home of someone who feels like this is wrong to do, I'm going to do it for them because I don't want to offend their conscience. And he takes this issue that's not a right or wrong issue, which I'll just go back to me wearing a mask. That's not a right or wrong kind of thing. But if it's something that someone feels strongly about and it's not harming me and it's not wrong for me to do, I want to do that for the sake of love for that person.
Yeah, it's taken me a while to get to that. I'm old, and I have had a mask in my truck for some time, and I have thought I should wear it for some time. Mm-hmm. And I shouldn't say I can't remember it. I don't remember it. And it hasn't become enough of an issue for me that when I get out and I don't have it on, I make myself go back and get it.
Yeah.
But just as of this week, I have decided, okay, that's what I'm going to do to get this in my head. When I get out of the truck and I don't have it on, I'm going to make myself go back. Mm-hmm. Because just like Paul knew it wasn't wrong not to eat the meat or to eat the meat, there were people that thought, it's wrong.
It really is.
Yeah, and it's wrong. And there are people I know and care about that think it's wrong not to wear a mask. And since I know it's not, or I personally don't feel as strongly about that, I'm going to wear it for the sake of them because I do love them.
Yes.
Right.
Why would I intentionally do something just because I have the right to do it? That I don't have to do it everywhere. I don't wear a mask around my house. Those kind of things. But
That's something that I think many Christians, and I've done this myself, get wrong is when I have what I believe is the right stance on an issue, just because I think I have the right stance doesn't give me the right to shame those who I don't think do.
Sure.
It doesn't mean I don't.
On both sides of
On both
the
sides
issue,
of that. Shaming someone for their convictions on an issue like that, or any issue,
No, really,
shaming someone is not helpful, nor is it loving.
yeah, even on an issue where they are definitively wrong, shaming them is not moving them to where you want them to go.
Yes.
Reasoning with them might be
yeah.
on something that's
Sure.
definitively wrong, but shaming is not a positive attribute.
Yeah.
Yeah. The goal in the end with everything is to honor people, and honor is something I think we miss also because I don't know what everyone thinks about honor. I have conversations with people about honor and I think it gets mixed up. Honor is really about ascribing value to somebody. So it's about saying I consider you as somebody who's valuable and important. And we do this kind of thing with people we honor, right? Like all of us have had the experience of well, I shouldn't say all of us have. I know the people who don't, but I think most of us have had the experience you go over to someone's house, a family member for dinner, and certain things that you do in your life, they don't necessarily think it's wrong. They're just a little like, I don't know why they do that. And you don't talk about it in front of them. You don't bring it up. You don't rub it in their face that you do stuff. You don't go to your parents' house and there are things that they're not mad at you that you do it, but they don't agree with every choice you've made. You don't keep going, remember I do this.
Yeah, and throw it in their
remember I
face.
do this and try and rub it. And on vice versa, if I'm the parent who knows you do this thing, and I don't really think it's like wrong, but I wish you wouldn't do it. Loving parents know in that situation, it's not the most loving thing for me to keep rubbing in my disappointment in my child's face. And the honoring thing in that situation to do is say, you're someone who's valuable to me. And honor and shame are really on the opposite ends of that spectrum.
Yes.
That shame is I want you to feel like until you do what you are to do, you are less of a person. And honor is no matter what you do, I want you to know you're valuable to me and to God. And I think that's the stance we have to take. And it doesn't mean that we don't ever, like you said, have conversations if I really think this is an issue. But there are ways we all know to have those conversations. That if I think someone's really doing damage to themselves or others, publicly shaming them, trying to belittle them is never going to get the result I want.
So in the context of, what we were talking about with the reopening, we're going to take measures that I know some people, because we have people, we don't make political kind of things at Community Christian. It's just we never have done that. Everybody, because we are Americans, we all have political beliefs.
Sure.
But we just believe there's a higher thing of Jesus. And I already said the thing about the government. We're going to try to be as honoring to what the government has asked us to do as we can that doesn't violate whatever, God has already asked us to do. And we think we can do that in good ways. And so I just want everybody to be prepared. So you're going to have to get a ticket every week so we can do that.
Yeah.
Hopefully in June, we're hoping that things are going to be a little more relaxed, whatever that looks like. And we can get back to a little more normalcy, whatever that new normal looks like. And we can do that. I just want all of us to remember, as a church, our thing always has been, and we've been so good at this as a church of accepting people.
Yeah.
Our deal is to love everyone always. And a part of this is I do have to stoop to honor other people with things that I wouldn't normally do myself. I don't make fun of it. I do what I think should do for the sake of all of us together so that we can continue to love and honor everybody. Yeah. And for those of you who are wondering, and I continue to try to say this because this is the other part of that I get asked, we are going to continue to be online. So we aren't going to shut that down and force people to come. So people are like, you're opening up, you're forcing people. Hey, we really believe if it's a benefit to us if you are in any way sick or you think you might be sick or you wondered if you might be sick. You could do harm to a whole bunch of us. You come and then we find out you are sick.
Yeah.
Sure. Or if you are vulnerable, we don't want to expose you to anything. We want to love and protect you. but it's not my job to shut anybody down either.
That's right.
So the tickets are available. We're going to continue to do online. We're going to try to serve both and try to continue to be a place where everybody's welcome, nobody's perfect, and we together love everybody all the time, including in this way.
Yep.
So that'll be rolling out.
Yeah.
Just remember, got to get a ticket every single week.
Every single
time,
week.
Every time we send it to you, you can't say, well, I got one last week. That is over.
Yes.
That is over.
Each service is its own thing.
Once, if you got a ticket at 9:30, by the time 11 comes around, you are done.
Yeah. Need another one. And back to a point you both brought up is this whole online thing. And Nathan, you were talking about good coming out of bad. I think we've learned a lot in these last few weeks about how to do church online, and we're constantly learning. In fact, we're going to be doing something a little different this week.
This
that we
Sunday will
learned.
be a little different. As
And,
we're trying to
yeah.
do things better. We think better.
We're trying, and I've heard some of you say, that was great. Not so much. We're figuring it out as we go.
Yep.
But I think as you invite people and as you continue to engage online, I hope you see that. I think the product that we're putting out online is becoming a better and better product. I think it's a better experience for people. I'm hearing great things that our kids team is doing online.
Mm-hmm.
They're just knocking it out of the park.
I agree.
So I think this storm that we've kind of gone through is, if we take advantage of it, can be one of those things that makes us better in the end as a church. I think maybe we've tapped into some areas that we haven't before and kind of forced our hand on that we had to do.
Oh, I know
online.
that's true for us as
We
a
would
staff.
have never done this stuff.
Or it would have taken us years. There are things that
Yeah.
we were talking about doing that we have done in a matter of weeks that would have taken us a long time to get done. And we're going to be better for it as a church. And I would just say this. That's the one thing I hope everybody will get in place. There was so much of our core identity as a church of what we did together on Sundays. But we were never about Sunday. We were always about we're together to get empowered, to get encouraged, to get energized. But we were out spreading the gospel, inviting people, encouraging people wherever we were. We were a point of contact for Jesus, with Jesus, for Jesus, to Jesus as we served in the community. And so you need to be on the lookout at every moment of who does God have in front of me that I could figure out a way to influence. Because, community Christian, everybody's welcome. Nobody's perfect. And we are loving every single person that we come in contact with. So
Good stuff. All right. Let's talk about Sunday. Sunday, we wrapped up the New Normal series, and we had kind of landed the plane, as we often say, at the end of a series. And I want to talk about a couple of points you made, get into them a little bit deeper. I love my favorite quote from the message was, we don't trust God because we know what he will do. We trust God because of what he has done and what he can do. And then, of course, that story that you told, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, was an illustration of that. My question is, why is that so difficult for us? Why do we push back on that idea? We want to trust what we think God will do rather than what he has done. Where does that come from? What's that thing?
if I want to track it through the course of this series, and I think not everybody gets where we're going, but I think we exposed it in the series with week 2. You talked about we all have this illusion of control.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of that is about I want to have an illusion of control, and that God's a part of it, and I do trust in God. But a part of my trusting is God is I'm hoping I can trust in such a way that God and I together can have some control over the circumstances of my life and other people that I don't particularly like what's happening circumstantially. I think that's what it is. My trust in God, I do trust him, but I trust him more when I can manipulate my circumstances too.
Yeah, because I have a little of the control.
I feel like I controlled something by my prayer or by my prayer and fasting or by my coming to church or by my hopping on one foot while I talk to him or whatever
Something.
the combination of things is that seem to work for me.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think where it comes from is what you're talking about here is the sense of control, which ultimately comes out of the fact that we're made in the image of God. And that as people made in the image of God, what that really means is that we were made to influence and to exert some level of dominance over things in this world, right? That God,
Yeah, that old word in the Bible was dominion. We want to have
Right.
dominance, dominion.
yeah, that we are to rule over things, and God made us to rule, but it was this idea of co-ruling that in the garden, right? That God sets us up and he's walking with us and he's ruling along with us, and it's supposed to be our will under his will. That it isn't that I don't get to decide. It really is God and I working in a partnership together. And you do see that throughout the Bible. It isn't this idea that God's just totally immovable on things. God is constantly having conversations with people, and they'll go, well, what about this? And God goes, okay, that works. Like there's this level of, if it does not contradict who God is and what his will is, that he's willing to partner with us. But the problem is, it's that, so when you talk about where it comes from, it is that central Garden of Eden thing that in our heads we go, what if God doesn't want my good? What if God isn't out for my good?
If he can't be trusted.
If he can't be trusted, what if, so if you're not much of a Bible person and you haven't heard, right, God sets up the Garden of Eden. He puts Adam and Eve in, and he says, I want you to rule over the earth and the animals and everything. I want you to co-rule with me. He goes, you can eat from anything in the garden except for one tree. And he says, when you eat from that tree, you'll surely die. But then there's a serpent, right, who comes into the garden, right, and he's the deceiver. And what he says to them is, hey, did God really say? That's the ultimate question. And really, he's questioning God. And he's putting this thought into our minds. Can I really trust him? Because you could just take this over in your own hands. You could eat from this tree. You could do what you think. And that whole idea of the tree being the knowledge of good and evil is me getting to determine for myself what is good, what is evil. God doesn't get to determine it. And so when I end up in this place of wanting control, I am taking what God made me in the image of, with in his image of having some level of control, but in submission, in trusting him to his will, and me saying, no, I don't like your version of what's good and evil. I want to get to determine what this is. And so I'm now trying to, and this is the ugly part of it, I'm trying to exert dominance over God.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get dominance over him and saying, and so we as believers do this a lot, where we go, if I pray the right thing, or I faith the right thing, right? I just believe the right thing, or maybe I got to do the right thing. And we don't say this, but it's what we mean. I can exert dominance over God. I can kind of pin him down, make him do what I want him to do. And then I now get to be God, ultimately, is where, because that's what the tempter says in the garden is the reason God doesn't want you to do this is you'll be just like God.
Yeah. And then there's that thing of, and back to the story that you used, Ed, on Sunday, you got these three guys and they have a choice to make. And, if they make this choice of defying the king, they're going to be burned alive. That's pretty much what they're facing. And here's the God that they serve, who they freely say that he can save us. But that God who's powerful enough to save them also had the power to then let them know before they made the choice, hey, you can do that and I'll save you. But he didn't.
He doesn't.
He didn't. And that's what we get frustrated with. It's like, God, I want to follow you. I want to do exactly what you say. So if you could come over here and tell me where that's going to wind up, then I'll be happy to do what you say. And almost never does it happen that way. No. In fact, I don't know if it's ever happened that way for me. It's always a thing of, hey, here's what I want you to do. And then if I say, well, where are we going? No, here's what I want you to do. Follow me, and we'll get to where we're going. And I'll be with you the whole time. And I'm like, yeah, but can you just show me the destination first? Show me how that's going to wind up. And he never chooses to do that, yet he's powerful enough to bring me through anyway. There's got to be a reason he doesn't do that. There's a reason he didn't do that for them. There's a reason he doesn't do that for me. And it comes back to he wants a relationship of trust.
Well, he wants us to seek him ultimately too, right?
Yes.
It's that the number one command, I should say number one command, but a consistent command in the Bible is seek. Seek me and you will find me, right? Seek first the kingdom of God. That there's this process of God saying, I want you to find me. I want you to, and I'm leaving every evidence you need to find me. And I'm leaving you all the commands that you need to know what to do in these situations. You just have to seek after it and you have to want it. I do think one of our biggest struggles is, and this may get too much, and I know we're going to talk about it a little later of this next series we're getting into, though, is that we don't, at my heart of hearts, I don't always want what God wants for me.
Right.
And I want God to want what I want. And I think the invitation, what Jesus was inviting us to, was not a life free of the problems that I face. And he's not inviting me to a life that's free of the trouble. In fact, consistently, Jesus said, this world's going to have trouble. This world's going to have problems. But what he's inviting me to is this process, and this goes back to what you talked about last week, that he's going to work good in me to make me the kind of person who can do easily what God calls me to do. And then as one person I just love says, that God is creating in me the kind of person that he can trust to do what I want to do. Right now, the issue is not always that I can't trust God. God cannot trust me that if I pray for something, God goes, well, I'm sure whatever Nathan wants
Hey, man,
is
just
good
do
enough.
whatever you want to do.
if
It'll be okay.
Nathan will get it done. He knows that often when I'm praying, and not that it's wrong for me to pray, whatever I'm feeling, I should be praying and talking about. But God often has to go, hey, I'm glad you talked to me about that. We're not going to do that. That's a terrible thing
A
to do.
really bad idea.
But in the process of all of the trouble and all of the just parts of life and the difficult people I have to deal with, if I submit to what God wants me to do, it forms parts in my character where now my heart looks more like his. And then when I pray things for people, I naturally want to bless my enemies. Whereas often now when I'm praying, I'm like, hey, God, could you make them realize how wrong they are?
Yeah. Could they bless me? If
Yes.
my enemies could start blessing me, I
That'd be
would love them the
great.
way you want to.
Yeah.
All I need you to do is have them bless me. Well, then they wouldn't be enemies.
There
would
you
they?
go.
Yes, exactly.
That's cart for the horse, man.
Yes. But God wants me to become the kind of person who naturally, I often do what God wants through gritted teeth. And I'm just,
I don't
know
remember
you-
where it was that I read this. But somebody wrote that the sign of my growing closer to God is the amount of time it takes for me to say yes to him.
yeah.
When I'm shortening, I don't know if it's Ortberg who said
I
that.
think that's a Willard
I was
thing.
gonna say, it
Willard
sounds like a
thing.
Willard thing.
Okay.
It's the cycle time.
Yeah.
It's the cycle time between here's what I want, here's what God wants. The cycle time between me getting to where God wants, that's my maturity.
Yeah.
How
The shorter
long
it
takes,
gets.
the shorter it gets between my want and
Yeah.
God wants, that's how you measure maturity.
Yeah. And so anyway, yeah, I think that's ultimately the issue for me, and I think for many of us, is Jesus inviting me into a process of being trained to be able to have influence like I was intended to have, and to do things that when God goes, the image I have in my head is, I hope that when God sees something in our world and he goes, I need someone to do something about that, I hope eventually God's first thought is Nathan. I bet Nathan can do that. And I think sometimes it's like, I'm going to ask Nathan to do it, but we know what's going to happen. I'm going to ask Nathan to do it. He's going to kind of shuffle his feet, maybe 2 or 3 years. Maybe Nathan won't even hear me because he's not even listening to what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
he's got something else going on. I was going, Nathan, and then go, okay, I'm going to have to ask somebody else.
I'm going to get somebody else to do this. But this idea of God going, God always is working within us to fix the problems in the world, and in me becoming the kind of person that God turns to and goes, hey, let's do this one together, and all that.
So the interesting thing to me is I think that statement of ultimately we trust God because of what he's done, not because of what he can do, and not what I know is going to happen. I can't remember exactly how I said it, but that's
Sure.
the gist of it.
Yeah.
We trust God because of what he has done and what he can do, not that we know what he will do.
Yes.
That's the basis of Christianity over every other religion. And you guys have been around. I mean, you've only mainly heard me speak until you started listening to real good preachers.
Yeah.
But every Easter, that's basically what I've taught at Community Christian forever.
Yeah.
That the center of Christianity is an event. It's not a way to get to God. It's not a system of me doing my life. It is this event that once I put my trust in, God can be trusted because that.
Yeah.
And so then whatever he asks, I used to say every Easter, when a dude rises from the dead, pretty much whatever he asks, I need to say, okay.
And even if he didn't do anything else.
Yeah, nothing else. I mean, you rise from the dead and you ask me to do something? Okay.
Yes, sir.
You know, because there's one thing I know I can't do nothing about. When it's time to die, I'm going.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So at the end of that, I love the song that we ended the service with. This idea of, you know, I believe you can. God, I believe you're able to do this. I'm asking you to do it. But you know what? Even if you don't, I'm still here. I'm not bailing on you. I'm not turning around. I'm not walking the other way. That's a kind of faith that I would hope all of us want to get to. And the thought I had was, what does that look like? Have you seen any real examples of that in people that you know, or just in instances that you've seen over? Can we bring that into our real world?
Well, only because you've talked about it on our podcast that I would bring it up. But I think you and your wife in the death of your child certainly are that. I watched that firsthand. The song that you mentioned, we know, you and I know.
Yeah.
And one of the first times I heard that, I had heard it before, but not as much, was at another death of a child of a friend of ours that got sung by a friend of ours. And when you see people go through those kind of things, and, you know, a lot of people, the examples they give of faith, and again, don't have to get too much of the next series. Often when people think about faith, they talk about faith and, I had this terrible news, but I put my faith in God, and the next day everything got reversed.
Yeah. Right.
Well, that's great, but that doesn't inspire me near as much as when, about the worst thing that most of us can imagine that have been parents is to have to bury a child. In fact, I just heard another preacher that we all know just make the mention. I never thought about it, that we have a word for somebody that a husband that loses his wife is called a widower, and a woman that loses her husband is called a widow. We have no word for a parent that loses their child because it's just not, it's unthinkable to us that should happen. We don't even have a word for it. And most of us just dread it. And when you see somebody go through something just that all of us dread, and they continue, they couldn't stop it. If they could have stopped it, they would have stopped it if they'd have done anything. And they continue to say, I know God could have do this, but it didn't happen, and yet I still trust him. Not because of what I can make happen, but because of who he is and what he's already done.
And you've already mentioned this next series that we're starting this coming week. We're going to get into that, this nature of faith and what it really is, and what it really isn't. And we've seen enough. And I think of an example is a good friend of mine just this past year watched his wife deteriorate and lose her battle to cancer. And this guy that I know the whole time prayed, asked for healing. Everything that you would do as a believer going through something like that. And yet he buries his wife. And then after that, this past Easter, the church that he goes to, they interviewed him. And the guy sits there and says, God's still God. I'm still serving him. He didn't choose to heal my wife the way that I wanted, but he healed her in another way. And I've got the hope that I'm going to see her. And so even if he didn't heal my wife the way I'd asked him to, I'm not going anywhere. Right. And I look at that guy and I'm thinking, that's what I want. That's the kind of faith I want to have. But to then come back and say, well, faith is just believe hard enough and just say the right words or pray the right prayers, and then you'll get what you pray for. I'm just like, that can't be it.
Well, and what I have noticed, and I used this example before for people, and I think most of us are honest, know it's true. We have all had instances where there was something in the moment that was about to happen bad, and we knew something bad was going to happen. The example I've used, because it is out of my past, of you get stopped by the police and you have a substance in your car that will send you to prison. And as he's walking up, you pray, oh God, do not. If you will not let him ask to look in the car, if that would not happen, I will serve you the rest of my life. And then the dude says, hey, you had a tail light out, and I just want to check your stuff. And he walks away, and you get a warning. no one suddenly becomes a missionary out of that,
No.
even if you promised to do it.
No.
Right.
You got exactly what you said. You said you had faith. And the way you tell that story is, dude, he didn't even look under the thing. I got so lucky.
I can do it again.
Exactly. Nobody's faith grows out of those kind of things.
No, it doesn't.
We don't even see it that way, but when we talk to people about it, we talk about it as some kind of power I have. It's not a power I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where we're going. If you're wondering, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about the nature of faith, what it is, what it isn't, and what that means for us. And I know when you first hear that, it's like, well, is that even good news? Yeah, it's a lot of good news in that, and I think you'll see that when we
I think
get
if you
to our
can
next
ever
series.
get it straight, if we can ever all get it straight in our head, the amount of good it does in my life to realize my faith is not dependent on me. It is not dependent on me.
It's a very freeing thing.
It's
Yeah,
exceptionally.
there's a
freeing.
lot of freedom in the fact that I'm the child in this situation and that I have a father who's in control. I hear lots of people talk about that all the time of, because I end up working with young people a lot, and I end up hearing, people who are older say lots of dumb things to people who are younger. But one thing that I hear all the time that I think is like this is the best days of your life, and when you're 15 and you hate your body and you hate the way everyone talks
And
about
everybody
you.
you want to be your friend makes fun of you.
Yeah, and everyone hates you, and you're like, this is the best days of your life, live it up. And I'm like, one, all the things you regret about your life happened when you were 15 and 16. And,
We can all attest to that.
Yeah, that's
it's like, those
exactly
are the
right.
things you hate. Stop saying that to people. It does get better. Like, everything is better after
Yes.
high school. But one of the things, I've noticed people talk about all the time when they're saying these are the best years of your life, and that is there's this idea for lots of people, they want to go back to childhood, and they're like, oh, there's something so great about that. And one of the things, and I think there maybe is a truth in this that maybe that people like, is the freedom of it wasn't all on my shoulders. That there is part of being an adult, there's this feeling of everything's on my shoulders. My life, everything, all the responsibility falls on my shoulders. And I do think one of the beautiful things that when Jesus talks about having a childlike faith is, it is what he's inviting you into is, I just need you to do what I tell you. You don't need to know the end.
Yeah.
You don't need to know what to do. My kids do that every day. They come down, they go, Dad, what are we doing? I say, well, I need you to go get the laundry. What are we doing after that? And I'm like, well, we're going to eat breakfast. What are we doing after that? They want to know the whole day's plan. I'm like, just go do. You don't need to know everything. You need to know what to do right now. And there is a freedom if they accept that of, my dad knows what he's doing. He's gonna make something good come out of this. And if I can live in that, but it is scary for many of us until we get to the point of letting go of that control. Because what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for a life with a good income and, my kids getting a solid education.
And me being able to do whatever I want to do
Yeah.
with no one asking me any questions.
Yeah. I do.
That's when people talk about the good life, I want to be able to buy what I can buy, do what I want to do with no accountability to anybody, but everybody doesn't do anything that offends me.
We were talking about this the other day of, I think one of the troubles with the kind of faith that Jesus calls us to is we do have a myth, and maybe it is because a lot of the blessings in our country can also be curses if we don't look at them in that. The amount of progress we've made as people, just in society, there's a belief we can eventually come that with the right amount of science and with the right person in government and with the right amount of knowledge in this, humans by themselves, I call it the Star Trek belief, which is we'll get to a place where there's no world hunger, there's no more wars, and yeah, exactly. There's never going to be anything. And always key to people, I love Star Trek. If you know, the key thing in Star Trek is we get rid of religion because humans themselves
Figure it all out.
overcome the problem. Well, we know that's a myth. Things in our world have gotten better in some degrees. Crime rates go down, right? All this kind of stuff. But anxiety levels have gone up.
Yeah.
Right? Depression levels. There are these things that do go up. The one solution's not going to fix it all. And we do come to believe this myth that I could live a life pain-free. And so if I could, I should. And that my life should, because what we were talking about this was a little while back, we were working on some stuff at my house, and we had these boards out, and we had just taken some nails out of the board, and so my girls are running around on the boards, and I was like, get off the boards, we don't know that all the nails are out of those boards. And I remember you talking about, man, when I was growing up, and you weren't saying this in the good old days, you weren't saying it like that, but you were talking about that's what we did all the time.
Yeah, that is what we did all the time.
And no one ever,
Nails in our feet all the time.
We had tetanus. We had lockjaw. Nobody cared.
that's right. But I think for the majority of the world, and this is the way it is, when you kind of just accept, because it's like this when we go to Haiti, the things that they don't even think about in Haiti that would be, that are almost disturbing to us when we go, oh my God, I can't believe they let their kids do it. Yeah. But when you really do have this acceptance of, life's going to have problems, and that there are, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't look, I'm not talking about not being cautious, but if you have this belief that, things are going to happen, I might get a nail in my foot, and that may not be the end of the world. There is this ability for you to see pain and discomfort. I can't live a life without pain and discomfort. Therefore, I shouldn't. But we do. And so when Jesus invites us to a life that goes, hey, there's pain and discomfort, we go, what? But Jesus isn't inviting us into a life with pain and discomfort. He's saying, you live in a life with pain and discomfort.
I have the answer to that.
Exactly.
I do.
Yes. And so I think that's the part that's hard for us is, that kind of faith is, the faith that's attractive to me is no pain, no discomfort. That I can pray it away.
And I told my kids this not too long ago. I said, guys, you're going to hear as you grow up, people are going to oppose your faith by using the world you live in and pain and suffering and how could a good God and all that stuff. And I said, and don't freak out when they say that to you. I said, because the truth is you live in a kingdom that has the only solution to the pain and suffering problem. And I said, Christianity, I said, as a Christian, don't you shy away from the issue of pain and suffering. I said, you lean into it. I said, because we got the solution to that. We follow the one who kicked death in the teeth. Right. We'll be just fine. Now, I get all that, and we can have those discussions of why a good God lets things happen the way he does. But I'm telling you, he provided the answer as well. That's what the whole Christian faith is about. So I don't want to get off on that. That's a whole other thing. But anyway.
I would say to people, maybe this is a thing. If you want to try to build your faith, honestly, if you want to build your faith going into this, the best thing I have known with people that have this view of faith of control is if my faith is based on not what I can make God do or what I know God will do, my faith is based on what God has done and what he can do, you need to spend time in grateful activities. You need to spend lots of time sitting in your life and daily figuring out a way to count how many things have come to you that you didn't plan to come to you, that you couldn't have controlled coming to you, that with a slight different decision, that if you're honest, you could have made either one. It wasn't some well thought out thing. You just went this way and it all went great. When you track your life that way and you begin to do a lot of grateful stuff, faith becomes God. As I say to people, I said this right after COVID-19, God has been way more faithful to me than I have ever been to him. He's been faithful every day of my life when I had my back turned on him. He's been faithful to me when I was sort of turned toward him. He's faithful to me. I have every reason to believe he will be faithful in the future, not because I know what's going to happen. It's just been the pattern of my life. Even the bad days of my life, there's been good stuff that came out of it that I couldn't have made happen.
And if you'll just stop and recognize that, you'll realize it is currently happening.
It is currently happening.
You're just not paying attention, man.
Right. So when I began to think of it in control, faith has always been based on what God has done and what he can do. He can do things I don't even ask him to do in better ways than the things I asked him to do.
Yes. Yeah. That's great.
That's a great place to end that discussion.
Yeah.
All right. Nathan?
Yes.
You have something to end our time together here today, so I will turn it. I don't know what it is.
I don't either.
This is becoming the surprise segment of the podcast.
I will say this though. I have known Nathan since the moment he sucked his first breath. He had a look in his eye right there that I've seen before.
You've
so
seen it.
Here we go.
Yes.
Let's see what's going to happen.
We're going to get on board.
I don't think it's that bad. So,
it doesn't matter.
I think so. I thought instead of doing a top 5 of my ideas with this, I know all of us have been watching it, and I think a lot of the world has been watching. It's about the only thing going on. Guys, we got to talk about Michael Jordan.
Oh,
The Last Dance.
We do. I'm not through it yet, but
Well, I don't
I'm
necessarily
far
wanna
enough
talk
in.
about-
I'm far
I don't
enough
know that
in.
everybody's been watching it, but if you haven't, what
It's awesome.
are you doing with your life?
You got nothing else to do.
So I'm a child of the 90s. I grew up with Michael Jordan as the greatest of all time. I mean, I didn't know anything different, and I
one
got
does.
really into. I got really into the NBA in elementary school because of Michael Jordan and because of let's be honest, Space Jam. I mean, that's a
Man,
big
really?
deal, man. Oh yeah, man,
That's
right?
sad.
right.
I remember taking you onto that movie.
Space Jam. I was all about it. And, you
We
know, I
went to
was-
the Dollar Theater in Fayetteville.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. So I remember seeing that, getting really into it. And we used to have NBA shootout and all that kind of stuff, man. And anyway, so all into Michael Jordan, and I just love this whole documentary.
Me too.
Watching through it, I haven't finished the last like 2, but which came
Yeah,
I
me
think
too.
Sunday.
I
so.
also have not watched the last two.
Well, I
either.
think we're all in the same spot.
Okay,
So there we
so
go.
then we can't spoil any of that.
That's
for
right.
us.
So well, I know what happens.
You know what happens.
I know what
Michael
happens.
Jordan continues to be the greatest.
The
Yes.
greatest of all time. Well, and so anyway, so there's a couple things I want us to be able just to kind of talk freely, not necessarily about Michael Jordan, but kind of around Michael Jordan and the Last Dance. And so first, just kind of get us going. Are there any things from the Last Dance in particular, which the Last Dance is the name of the documentary series? It's a 10-part documentary series on ESPN. You can watch it if you have the ESPN app and watch
For
it there.
free.
For
Yeah.
free. It's great. Anyway. So, what are any things that you really just moments in the Last Dance that maybe highlighted something about Michael Jordan or the Bulls that either you didn't know or you'd forgotten, or anything that just kind of stood out as, oh man, I need to? Because I think with every documentary there are things, or biography, I take things away and go, oh, that's very interesting. So anything that stood out to you guys?
The thing that hit me was his reputation has always been of kind of a hard-nosed kind of guy, not a very personable type of dude. But I think watching him and hearing him describe his life, I've come to realize that he really does feel, and he really is a caring person, but he was so stinking driven
Right.
to be the best that, and I've seen people like this. I've been that person at times that you get so laser focused on what you're doing that it's just everybody's got to get out of my way, and you either get on this train or you're getting knocked off. And he had that mentality. And what's cool is I think you see the players that played with him, they got it. And that's why they respected him so much.
And he made them better because
He
of
made
it, yeah.
them better. And he was not only the greatest player.
Maybe not better people.
He was but he was a great teammate
Yeah.
as well. That one spot where he gives up the last shot
Oh, yeah.
to
Paxton?
Paxton, yeah. And then they win the game. It's like, how many superstars today would do that?
Do that.
You know, so that's the thing that I loved about that, and the part where the one where it ends and he's very emotional.
That's the one I was
think
very.
it's
I
because
was
he
very much-
realizes that people didn't get who he really was.
Yeah,
and it hurt him. So
I think that one was exceptionally moving to me
Mm-hmm.
because I think anybody that's ever been in a leadership position, leadership by nature is, everybody goes, oh, it's lonely. It is lonely in that nobody but the leader knows what the leader knows
yeah,
and the price that is paid. And often you don't, you feel like nobody understands you. That's what I got out of that.
Yep, that's it.
I thought, man, he feels like no one really understood him and how much he cared and how much he wanted the best for them and all those kind of things. And he basically comes out and says, you know, because the question that moved him was, when you Google Michael Jordan, good guy, that's how the guy, there's a podcast that goes along with it. If you haven't listened to it, that comes afterwards. And I listened to the director talk about it. And he said, that's how the question got asked is, you know, Michael, when you Google Michael Jordan, good guy, there's not much there. And he said he was a little taken back, and he said that was our very first interview. He said that interview, when you see, he said it comes in the 8th episode, but he said it was early. He said when he asked, I need to stop. He said that was within the first hour. He said I got up from that and walked into the bathroom and thought, oh my gosh, I've blown.
blew the whole thing
I've
up.
blown the whole thing. He said, but he was visibly moved by the fact of it. Sort of moved him of, people don't think I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy. I was trying to help all these guys do what they couldn't have done. And none of us, we all needed each other. And he led them to something. That was moving to me because not in any way, I haven't won 6 championships. But I have felt that at times of misunderstood, and you do things and people think the worst of you and all that kind of stuff. So I have felt that.
I think for me, the thing I took away is I couldn't help watching it, and just because how mine works and trying to figure out Enneagrams for every person in the thing. watching Michael Jordan, I can totally feel. I think watching him in the several different cases where somebody would come in and go, "This is the new Michael Jordan," and he would just openly say in the thing. And once I heard them say that, I couldn't let that stand, so I had to humiliate that person on the court. And the almost just like glee he took even saying it now, and I go, yeah, I think he's a 3. Like I think his ability to say I have to be, and not just be the best. That's what I have learned about myself. It's not just that I want to be the best that I can be. I have to be better than everyone.
I think he's an 8.
Well, maybe that's us reading our own mail into it.
Maybe.
I think his drivenness to be him solely being the best.
I saw someone on Twitter just say if Twitter had existed while he was playing, he would have won 12 championships.
Yeah.
Right.
Because of all the junk he would have gotten, and
Yeah.
it would have fueled his fire.
Yes. That I think this desire he has of I have to be better than everyone else. Anyway, you'll never know. You can never know
And
anyone's
it's the
internal
loyalty
motive.
factor. I guess that comes from the podcast too. There's a part, B.J. Armstrong in one of the episodes who had played with Michael, then goes to Charlotte, and in one of the episodes he hits a thing at the end of and then for Charlotte, he's playing for Charlotte. He hits a shot and then yells at the Bulls bench. Well, Michael took that as disloyalty. Eights really want loyalty, and then they came out and destroyed Charlotte. And for a long time, he wouldn't talk to BJ. Then the Jalen Rose, who is the co-host of this podcast, who was part of the Fab Five and all that kind of stuff, had played on Indiana against him. He said there was a guy who had been a number 1 draft pick who had played in Michael's camps, and one night he went and hit a buzzer beater to beat the Bulls, and he said something to Michael, and or he walked off the court and wouldn't talk to Michael, and so Michael has never spoken to that guy again. Even though they had been friends before, because he considered it disloyal. Hitting the buzzer beater wasn't the deal.
Yeah.
It was the fact that you then you wanted to flaunt yourself in front of me. It felt disloyal to him. Because, when he makes a point in that one about, when he lost to the Pistons, he went over and shook every one of their hands.
They walked off.
And they walked off. And none of them shook his hands. That had more to do with, hey, I did my part. You didn't do your part.
That's right.
Yes.
I'm done with you boys.
Yes.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to cut this short, but you got a meeting to get
I
to.
do have a meeting. I asked y'all to watch.
You told me to watch the clock.
Watch the clock because I have
did.
a meeting to go to.
So I'm getting you out of here for your meeting.
Thank
We're
you.
done.
All right. So thanks for listening. We'll see you at church this Sunday online, and we'll see you here next week.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.